The information contained on the Crypto Sports Collector website and social media is for general information and educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for legal, commercial, and/or financial advice from a licensed professional. The business of online investing is a complicated matter that requires serious financial due diligence for each investment to be successful. You are strongly advised to seek the services of qualified, competent professionals prior to engaging in any investment that may impact your finances.
Crypto.
So maybe I'll just start from my own experience and how I vet things, because my strategy might not be the same thing that is the right strategy for you. But I think, what I try to do as Crypto Sports Collector is show all the different strategies that are out there. I might not necessarily agree with all of them because they're not right for me as an individual investor, but I like for my audience to see the variety of strategies that are out there, just like the stock market or the real estate, right? Like you can make money in a multitude of different ways with stocks or the housing market or whatever market, the sneaker market, right? Like you can choose to focus on one strategy versus the other based on what excites you and what makes sense for your own individual case. So I'm going to do this from the point of view of what I fundamentally believe. And you can, the beauty of the blockchain and NFTs is, you can't fib this stuff, right? Like it's all recorded on the blockchain. So what I'm about to say is the actual strategy that I espouse, right? Like it is something that you can see in my buy and sells and what's on my watch list. You can see all this stuff from the very beginning for me. And I started Top Shot right around January, February timeframe when basically everyone was. And again, some of these things are going to be so obvious, but sometimes you just need a reminder of the obvious things, even when you're in our choppy market. Is the early series, Series 1, Series 2 are going to be the most valuable in 5 or 10 years. If assuming that Top Shot lasts, Series 1 and Series 2, the early series are going to be the most valuable ones. And so that is my fundamental belief, and I think generally that is that holds true whether you're collecting sneakers or collecting Pokemon cards or collecting physical trading cards. Typically, the first 1 or 2 editions are going to be the most coveted. It just kind of naturally makes sense because those tend to be rarer. So for me, I tend to heavily invest in Series 1 and Series 2. So when you're asking me, what am I looking for when there's a downturn, I'm looking for deals in Series 1 and Series 2. So that's part 1. This part 2 of my strategy is the who I'm invested in. I'm invested in Hall of Famers because those are my quote unquote blue chip stocks. Those are my, if I liken this to the stock market, that's my Google, that's my Amazon. I'm looking for the Salesforce of the world. Who are these big companies that are going to survive these downturns? Just like Warren Buffett says, these companies have good fundamentals, they're household names, and you think about them easily because they're so prominent. These are big companies that it's going to take a lot for them to ever fail and not do well over the long term. If you do apply that same thoughts to or same mindset to NBA Top Shot, I'm going for LeBron, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, Giannis. These are, some of them aren't quite kind of householdy names. LeBron and Steph Curry, household names. So it makes sense. And they're the most popular players in the NBA. So of course you want to own their moments. For me, Giannis is kind of the one that kind of sticks out to me because not quite a household name, but very much going to be the face of the NBA in my mind once LeBron and Steph Curry retire. Yeah, and his Hall of Fame potential's basically on lock already. Like he's already got an MVP and a championship to his name. So so to me he's a virtual lock for the Hall of Fame. And so when I say that I want to invest in the Hall of Famers, it's because I want to in 5 years from now, I ask myself, if I'm trying to resell something to someone for a great return, what would someone care about? Are they going to care about that random role player on the Warriors that 5 years from now you don't know what he did, or are you going to go for a Giannis or a LeBron or Steph Curry because those are the names that just easily pop in your mind? It's going to be those guys. Again, it's painfully obvious, but if I zoom in right now, you can see that there are a lot of transactions happening for role players or kind of not superstars, and that's fine. It's just not for me. That's just not my investing strategy. I don't tend to buy role players. I spend a little bit of money on rookies or sophomores that I think are up and coming, but that's not the vast majority of my spend. You'll see a lot of my spend is on those superstar players that, even though they command a more of a premium, they will have longer staying power over the long term. So that's it's an obvious and easy strategy to say, oh, Series 1, Series 2, and Hall of Famers. Like it's so painfully obvious, but for me, the obvious sometimes is the best strategy, because 5 years from now, what are you going to want? Are you going to want a random role player, or are you going to want a superstar? So for me, it's going to be the superstar, and that's going to have the staying power over time, in my opinion. That's not to say you can't make money banking on rookies, just like finding a rookie card of, like I'm going to say this about like a Tom Brady. If you found a Tom Brady rookie card, that's worth a lot of money, right? Like after his very illustrious career, that's obviously going to be worth money. So if you're able to find those, more power to you. But that's a bigger risk than banking on Hall of Famers in my mind.
Here he comes the other way. There's your first James Jam of his career. Whoa. He was great. Welcome to the NBA.
I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up, because I've been thinking about this in terms of what brings value to these moments. There's the tangibles that everyone kind of knows about. A lower serial number, an early series. Is the moment itself, cool or special in any way? Was it a game-winning shot? And then obviously the player themselves. Over time, over the past year and a half, as Top Shot has continued to evolve, this idea of household name or the star power of a player, I think starts to play into it a little bit more. And let me give you an example. LeBron and Steph Curry, household names, just like we talked about. The non-NBA fan tends to know who they are. So they tend to be in the news more and more because of that, right? And so you've got to imagine, in our fast technology and Twitter world and Instagram world and YouTube world, where you're getting this information very fast, if LeBron or Steph Curry does something, has a great night or has an off night or something, we find out about it fairly quickly, whether you're paying attention about it or not paying too much attention about it. And at the end of the day, any market, whether it's the stock market, real estate, or sports NFTs, we are human. We have human behaviors, and we act on those human behaviors. So if LeBron has an off night, and you kind of look at the valuation of his moments, you probably will see people like selling it. Like, even though at the end of the day, was his one bad night going to be tarnished because, or is his reputation as a Hall of Famer and one of the best players ever to play the game, is that gonna fundamentally, that one bad game gonna actually tarnish his legacy? Probably not. But human behavior tells you that you could actually probably see it on a chart where LeBron's moments might go down because he had a bad playoff game or something like that. And so, kind of going back to your original question, which is these transcendent superstars, and this idea of media coverage on them, I think definitely plays into valuation. It's very hard to measure it because it's immeasurable. It's like, how would you ever measure that? I'm going to compare and contrast this with one of my own players that I'm a fan of, because I'm a Warriors fan, is Jordan Poole. He's very popular right now during the playoffs and towards the end of the NBA season. he is not nationally, the Warriors are nationally covered, but he's not a national name even before January of this year. He just came on the scene and he started getting a lot of press coverage because of how well he's been doing in the playoffs and at the end of the season. Again, not a household name. You can bank on him being an up-and-comer, but only Warriors fans would kind of really know what he means to the team versus, you know, the average NBA fan, or let alone a non-NBA fan. And so the reason why I mentioned this is he has a few hot games in the playoffs and you're like, who is this guy? And you can see I actually looked at this data. You can see his moments on the night that he had a really hot playoff game. I think it was in the first round of the playoffs. You can see his moments spike up. That is the power of media pushing the fact that Jordan Poole is kind of like the cool new player to follow, because you're seeing him grow up with, under the mentorship of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And so you're like, whoa, where did this guy come from? And you can see it in the data. I think it was a game back in April where I want to say it was exactly 1 month ago. You could see his moment valuation spike up for a couple of his moments. And so you've got to believe that if this was 30 years ago when Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson were playing, it's harder to react real time. Like if you had trading cards of them or physical trading cards back in the 90s, you can't react to media that fast. Like how could you sell something that fast because you were in print media and you had to read things in newspaper and magazines, right? Like your ability to transact was much, much slower, and the ability for the news cycle to hit you was much slower back in the 90s. Now everything's real time. So back to your original point is media certainly plays a huge role, I think, in the valuation. Because at the end of the day, we are human creatures that will act human and will act on emotion. And so as you see these news bits come out about whether it's a role player, a rookie, or a transcendent star like a LeBron or Steph Curry, that certainly plays into people's behaviors in terms of selling or not selling their moments or their NFTs.